Halloween. It is a holiday loved by many across the country and even in some places around the globe. I wanted to make some sort of Halloween video, but seeing as I'm a geography channel, I didn't really think there was a way. Unless you're afraid of the prime meridian or something. But then it came to me. What better way to celebrate this spooky holiday than talking about ghost towns? Abandoned towns that are still points of interest on a map, but are destined to rot for all eternity. Okay, there's probably a few better ways, but this is what I came up with, so that's what we're doing. So join me in this mostly unscripted exploration of some ghost towns I found and wanted to explore. Most of this video is going to be kind of off the cuff. I just have some bullet points about some towns I want to talk about, and then, we're just going to go down the streets and see what we find. Okay, so the first town that I wanted to look at today is Rhyolite. It's right over here in southern Nevada, right near Death Valley, and is a pretty famous ghost town, I would say. I had never heard of it, but I know it is a tourist attraction and is a historic area now. Looks like it's kind of up here, tucked away in some mountains. Go 3D, see the mountains here, yeah. So there's the mountains, and then right off 374 here. So let's take a look. Let me get back 2D. Let's start at this end. So like a lot of towns out west, I've already previously talked about the gold rush in the 1800s, but this was one of those towns. This was a mining town, and an unfortunate reality for a lot of those towns is abandonment. So there are many, many ghost towns in this area of the country. I wonder what this was at one point. Oh, it looks like it's an old casino. And a lot of these ghost towns were mining towns. Looks like we have some passersby traveling through. Look at that building. This has been left to ruin for quite some time. So Rhyolite was one of these mining towns and had a very short lifespan. Shorter than you would imagine. It was founded in 1904. Yeah, checking my notes. 1904. HD and LD Porter, 1906. I wonder what this building was. And grew to an alleged 5,000 people in like 1908. Although the population statistics are kind of messy, because this town's lifespan was so short, and with a lot of these towns back in those times, it was hard to quantify how many people were actually living in the town. Let me go back and look at this casino. Let's look at it from the other end. We have signs for restrooms here. Don't know where they're pointing to. Can we go up here? Look at, no. I think that's probably like a visitor center or something. When this town was at its heyday in 1908 with 5,000 people, the mine was still running strong and providing a strong income for a lot of the people who came here just to work in the mine for opportunity. But unfortunately, that mine dried up relatively quickly. Within just a few years, the Montgomery Shoshone mine, which is the local mine that was providing all these jobs and opportunities and economic growth, was shut down just in 1911. So from 1904 to 1911 was the heyday of this town, and it didn't really exist past then. Basically by 1904 it was completely abandoned. So this is one of those towns that's really just a time capsule of the gold mining era, and not not many of these towns exist today, obviously, in America, but still a very interesting piece of history, and just one of the many, many, many examples of Western gold mining towns that are now abandoned. So, as we move on, let's exit this area. Oh, that didn't look so great, but we're gonna move on here. Oh, my map is upside down. That's awesome. Let's flip that. And we're gonna go to one of the more storied ghost towns in America, if I can find it here. Let's see. I'm trying to. Okay, here we go. Yeah. So Centralia. Centralia, if you've never heard of it, is probably one of the most interesting ghost town stories that I've heard of. Because it kind of was abandoned in dissimilar fashion to a lot of the other places. So Centralia was also a mining town, which you might say, oh, I thought you said it was dissimilar. Well, it is, but it was not a gold mine, it was a coal mining town. This is in the coal belt, and Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia are very well known, Kentucky for coal mining. And Centralia was no different, and was a pretty much I don't want to say booming, but it had a solid community for about a century. So Centralia was founded sometime around 1841 and existed as normal, just a normal city or town with a coal mine for over a century. So that would be until the 60s. The coal mine that was so important here was home to a form of coal called anthracite coal. Anthracite coal is kind of the Rolls-Royce of coal, if you will. It's the highest ranking form of coal. It burns the longest and contains the most carbon, so it has the most energy in it. So it's usually the most expensive kind of coal and is the most sought after, or it was. I'm sure a lot of places still use coal, but including America, actually. So yeah, a lot of places still use coal, and it's very sought after. Let's see if I can find some pictures here, because I know that a lot of the street coverage here is kind of very old. So here's the cemetery, and then here's an active vent. So you might be wondering, what do you mean by active vent? Let's see. Yep, we got some pictures here. Oh, there's some nice aerial footage. It's a little grainy, but this kind of gives you a layout of kind of what the town was. Nowadays, all the foundations are knocked down and nothing is left except for a few old decaying homes. But really, the over-the-top view of Centralia gives you a feel for, oh, this was a town here. There's a street grid. Looks like, oh, this was a little downtown area. This was a downtown area. But the reasoning behind Centralia's eventual abandonment was these coal mines. So what ended up happening, although it is not fully known exactly how this happened, but at one of the landfills, let's go from this way. Let's kind of ease our way into the town. At the local municipal landfill, it is believed that a fire started and spread into a nearby open mine that led to the greater vein underneath the town. And the town has been burning ever since. So the one downside to, I guess, having this large deposit of anthracite coal is it burns for so long that it's almost impossible to stop the flame. Once the fire spread, it burns so slowly and has so much carbon reserves in it. It just slowly spread throughout the mine and has been burning ever since 1962. That's when this happened. So what we're looking at right here used to be an entire downtown area, and I'll put up some pictures so you have some reference. But this area was the downtown area with shops lining the street, and people just enjoying the community. So Centralia was never a giant town. It peaked at population at somewhere around like 1,100 to 1,200 people. But I mean, that's still a sizable community for just a little coal town in the mountains. Um, Although the town, it was not abandoned completely when this happened in 1962. A lot of the people still stayed and enjoyed the town because, I mean, it really wasn't that big of an issue yet. But it would prove to be an issue because as more of the vein started to burn, sinkholes began to form. And the problem with the sinkholes forming was now there was these giant gaping holes, not only, as a danger to citizens and, possible foundations. It started releasing carbon monoxide gas into the air. And I believe there was actually an order in 1992 for all of the remaining residents to evacuate, but in the 80s, pretty much this is when this happened, when these sinkholes started to form, and almost everybody vacated the town. But there were still some that stayed around, and I think the greater area still has a population of about like 5 or so, but they don't live in this little downtown area. It would be one of the outskirts, one of the decaying homes. But yeah, this place no longer has a post office, but as you saw from the pictures, was definitely a lively area, and with a downtown area, looked like regular small town America in this part of the country. But unfortunately, things don't always last. So I think that's good for this one. We'll move on to our next location, which I think I have it down as... Oh, okay. This is another interesting one. Gotta find it. Going to Alabama. Let's see here. Here we go. To Old Cahaba. Don't know how to say this or if I'm saying it right at all. I'm sure if anybody watches this, they'll correct me in the comments. But we're going with Cahaba for now because I don't know how the hell to pronounce this. Okay, so Cahaba is located here, almost in the dead center of the state. If I zoom out here, I gotta make sure I don't lose my cursor. Almost in the dead center, a little bit to the south, but almost in the dead center. And as you can see, we have a little bit of a town center here. There's a little bit of a grid left over, but what happened? Because there is nothing here except a few buildings. So what this is now is a historical district. Like I believe this is like a little visitor center. There's a lot of signs along the roads, as we'll see as we're going. But the interesting fact about this, look at that. Wow, only $2 to enter. Should be free. But the interesting thing about this town was it was actually the original state capital of Alabama, and was from, let's check my notes, 1819. That's when this place was founded, kind of carved out of the forest at the confluence of the Alabama and Cahaba rivers right here, and was the state capital for not a very long period of time. So 1826 is when this state capital up and moved, and it was kind of because of a few different factors that are understandable. The main reasoning behind it was there's, this town, if you can see, is very, very close to the river, and these two rivers, it was very susceptible to flooding and had floods. And another cause or result of this was disease was prevalent here. I mean, it's kind of in the forest. You're in a wet area, lots of mosquitoes. Malaria was prevalent at the time in the early 1800s. So this made it kind of easier for politicians to want to move the capital, which they did move in 1826, and it went to Tuscaloosa, and that didn't last either. So I don't know if they were their best at picking state capitals back then. Here is, I think this is probably a reclaimed old structure. This is supposed to be the state capitol building. I can't imagine it was this small, but maybe it was. But unfortunately, a lot of this town was lost to fires and floods by the early 1900s. So all we really have left is this rock in the middle that's carved into, and this remaining street grid that was paved over for, tourist purposes and making it a historic area. So after the town was abandoned by the state and wasn't the state capital in 1826, it didn't necessarily fall. It wasn't like, oh, immediately everybody left. It was a very slow decline over the remaining years. Oh, we got some old coverage here. Is there a fire pit? So from around 1826 to the late 1800s, it kept a population, but it was steadily declining and went from around 3,000 all the way down to, just a few hundred, until finally in the early 1900s, everybody left the area for the cities for better opportunities, which kind of a sad end to what should be a very historic area of Alabama. I mean, it's the first state capital, but at least it's preserved as a historic district. So we got some more coverage down here. Let's see. And I would imagine this is more of what it was looking like with these dirt paths. Maybe not as many trees and some homes, but definitely some dirt paths back then. All right, let's move on. Oh, there's a house there too. Can't see it because of the tree line. Let's move to our last location. Let's fix that, which is going to be on the border between New Mexico and Texas, even though I'm going to probably label it as New Mexico. Glen Rio, this area. So 3 of the 4 of these places were marked on the map. This is the third one. Cahaba was not, unfortunately, marked on the map, but this is your quintessential kind of road trip stop on Route 66. So let's go here, and as you can see, what probably happened to this town, the big evil Interstate 40 kind of just shooting right past it. I'm sure you can imagine what happened. But let's go through the little downtown area now. So as you can see on this sign here, I want to mention too, this town, Glen Rio, was used as a stopover point between these 2 towns, Amarillo and Tucumcari. See if I got that one right. I doubt it. Amarillo is like, I think, 70 miles to the east of the town, and Tucumcari is, I think, somewhere like 30 or 40 miles to the west. So this is the old Route 66 and is the business loop Route 40 now, apparently. And Glen Rio is down this way, so let's go. So Glen Rio was never a big town. It was always a stopover point town, like many, many towns along Route 66. Originally, it was a part of something called the Ozark Trail, which came about in the early 1900s, I want to say. And it was later incorporated into the Route 66 route. So here's some old gas stations here. Look at that car. That car has not seen action in quite a long time. No trespassing sign in the window. Don't worry, we're from the street. Got another old car over here. And I don't know what this might have been. Maybe some sort of gift shop or a repair shop. I'm not sure. So, have that. You can see the interstate from the town now. And this town was not a thriving, not a booming town. Only about 30 people lived here at its peak, but it saw very regular traffic from passerbys on Route 66, because Route 66 was a very traveled route back in the day before the interstate highway system, and it stayed that way until about 1975. That's when Interstate 40 opened for business, and kind of moved everything to the interstate. And this town, I when I was looking for towns, I kind of wanted to do this town because it really just reminds me of the movie Cars, because I mean that's what this town is. When you're a kid and you watch that movie, you don't really recognize that places like this exist, and you probably didn't know, what are they talking about. But Glen Rio is a lot like Radiator Springs, as it was just a passover point, and it fell into decay because of the interstate highway system. So here we have, I heard about this. This is actually an active business now. It is a smoke shop, because I believe marijuana is legal in New Mexico and it's not in Texas, so they built one right across the border. So even after all these years, Glen Rio is finding purpose. Here was the old motel. I probably looked at that a bunch of times. There's some of the back lot where people would stay in front. So when this was the Ozark Trail, this is when it saw traffic, and then especially as the horse and buggies turned into just cars coming through the area in the 1900s, as travel by motor vehicle began to pick up. That's what this was repurposed as. Let's see, I think that's kind of the end of the town, but the sad part is you can see kind of the disarray. This is the original Route 66, and how little it's traveled anymore. I mean, this road is very, very old. I can't imagine it's any less than 30 to 40 years old when it was paved. Probably older than that, but it's fallen into complete disarray because nobody takes this way anymore. It's much easier to just go right to the nearby Interstate 40. It's right over here. No more need for Glen Rio. Oh, that's very cool though. The land of enchantment. I'd never do that. Well, I think that about does it for this video. I think we looked at some towns. I did a lot of rambling. I don't know if you guys are gonna like this style of video, but if you do, let me know. I'll make some more, especially doing ghost towns. I love looking at Google Maps and Google Maps ghost towns especially. So I know I tried to make this as Halloween related as possible, but I think ghost towns will suffice. More videos should be coming soon. I'm just very slow and consistent, but I have some ideas for stuff that I'll be doing in the future. So if you enjoyed at all, and maybe you enjoy this view of the desert, stick around. I'll be putting more stuff out, and I'll make some more of these if you'd like. So anyway, time for me to head out. Peace.